Welcome to Skyscope, the podcast for amateur astronomers who want more than just the obvious. So this is our observing tip for calendar week 25.
Okay, week 25. And what do we got?
We're looking at NGC 6210, also known as the Turtle Nebula.
Ah, the turtle. Right, that's in Hercules, isn't it?
It is, and it's a bit of a challenge. Perfect for these mid-June nights. You know, they're short, but sometimes the seeing is really steady.
Yeah, steady air is definitely what you need for this one. It's not one of the super famous ones, but visually it can be quite striking if you catch it right.
This is Skyscope, challenging targets, real observing.
So let's talk about why it's considered a challenge. At first glance, the brightness is about magnitude 8.8.
Right, 8.8 sounds pretty doable, doesn't it? You'd think, oh, easy find.
Yeah, you'd think. But the real kicker, the thing that makes it tricky, is its angular size. It's tiny.
Really tiny. We're talking, what, maybe 20 arc seconds across, something like that.
Just about.
Yeah.
Roughly 20 arc seconds. And that's smaller than a lot of planetary nebulae that are actually fainter.
That's the key point. So spotting a little point of light might not be hard, but seeing anything in it, that needs magnification. A lot of magnification.
In stable skies, good seeing, as observers call it.
Absolutely crucial. If the stars are boiling, forget trying to resolve detail in something this small. It just won't happen.
Okay, so high power, steady air. Got it. Before we dive into finding it, what is NGC 6210? What kind of object are we dealing with?
Well, it's a classic planetary nebula, which, has nothing to do with planets, despite the name.
Right, the old misnomer.
Exactly. It's basically the end stage for a star like our sun. The star puffs off its outer layers, creates this expanding cloud of gas.
And the core collapses down.
Into a white dwarf. A really hot, dense white dwarf right in the middle. And it's that hot star that lights everything up.
How does it light it up?
The white dwarf blasts out intense ultraviolet radiation. That UV light hits the gas, ionizes it, strips electrons off the atoms, and then as the electrons recombine, the gas fluoresces. It actually emits its own light.
And what kind of light does it emit? What colors?
Physically, the main emissions are in the blue and green parts of the spectrum. That's mostly from ionized oxygen and hydrogen.
Blue and green sounds lovely. But we probably won't see those colors, not easily anyway.
Generally not, no. Our eyes just aren't sensitive enough to color in faint objects like this, especially something so small. You'd need like a really big telescope, maybe some filters under perfect skies to even hint at color.
So what do we typically see?
Through most amateur scopes, it'll look like a tiny, maybe slightly oval disc, bluish gray perhaps? Grayish mostly.
Okay, a small gray blob.
Sort of, but hopefully a bit more defined. You should notice it's brighter towards the center, and if the seeing is good, you might pick up hints that it's not perfectly symmetrical.
Right, the shape. That's the main visual interest then, not the color.
Exactly. Teasing out the form of that tiny disk, that's the goal. Okay,
finding it. Hercules. Big constellation, fairly high up in summer evenings. Where do we start?
The easiest landmark is the keystone, that sort of trapezoid shape.
Yep.
Find the star Zeta Hercules, one of the corners of the keystone. From Zeta, you need to star hop about 2 degrees, give or take, towards the northeast.
2 degrees northeast. Is it in a busy star field?
Exactly.
Easy to get lost.
That's the other tricky part. It's actually in a pretty sparse area, not many bright guide stars right next to it.
So stumbling upon it might be hard.
It can be, yeah. A detailed finder chart is almost essential here. Something better than a basic atlas, or, if you have a go-to scope, that obviously makes pinpointing the location much easier.
Makes sense. So use the chart or go-to to get close. Then what? Low power first.
Definitely low power first. Wide field of view to sweep the area. Trying to find it with high power right away is usually just frustrating.
And maybe use a filter even at low power.
Good idea. A nebula filter can really help it stand out, even as just a faint spot initially.
Which filters work best for planetaries like this? UHC.
A UHC ultra-high contrast filter is a good option. It helps darken the background. But for planetary nebulae, often the best choice is an OIII filter.
OIII filter, right. And how does that help more than, say, the UHC?
Well, the OIII filter is much more specific. It isolates just the wavelengths of light from doubly ionized oxygen, that O3 emission we talked about.
Which is strong in this nebula.
Exactly. So it lets that light through, but blocks almost everything else: sky glow, light pollution, even light from faint stars nearby. The nebula just sort of pops out against a much darker background. It really boosts the contrast.
Okay, so it makes the nebula itself seem brighter relative to the sky.
Precisely. And for NGC 6010, it can really help define that brighter inner part. So yeah, use that OIII filter.
Got it. Find the area, Low power, maybe blink with an OIII filter to nail it, then you crank up the magnification.
Absolutely. Once you've definitely identified that little fuzzy patch, that's when you push the power. You really need magnification to see any structure. We're talking like 150x minimum, maybe up to 250x or even more if the seeing allows.
Otherwise, it just looks like a slightly fuzzy star.
Pretty much, yeah. You'll miss all the interesting stuff without enough power.
What about telescope size? Do I need a monster scope for this?
Bigger always helps, especially from less than perfect skies. An 8-inch, maybe a 200mm scope is often recommended to get what you might call a meaningful visual impression, to start seeing some actual detail.
But smaller scopes aren't completely out.
Not if you have really dark, clear skies. Under excellent conditions, even a 6-inch scope could show it. It really highlights that for these small, relatively bright objects, good seeing and enough magnification can be just as important, if not more so, than pure aperture.
Right. Unless you're fighting light pollution, then aperture helps punch through.
Exactly. More aperture gives you more contrast against a brighter sky background.
Okay, so let's say we have decent skies, a good scope, we're using high power. Maybe that OIII filter is in place. What details might we actually see? What gives it the turtle name?
Observers report seeing a slightly irregular shape. Not perfectly round, maybe a bit elongated or oval. And sometimes, especially under good conditions or with larger scopes, people see faint extensions like little protrusions from the main body. It's that slightly irregular shape with possible little limbs that kind of reminded people of a turtle shell.
Ah, I see. So it's not just a random name, it actually describes the subtle visual appearance.
Pretty much, yeah. Some observers with really big scopes even report seeing a kind of multi-lobed structure, not just simple protrusions. Others describe it as a bright core with these fainter, uneven extensions.
Sounds like it's quite complex up close.
It really is, and that complexity means it's worth revisiting.
Definitely. What you see one night might be different from the next, depending on the seeing or the magnification or filter you use.
Exactly. It's not a seen it once, done with as object. It rewards patience and repeated observation. You might catch a detail one night that you completely missed before.
We've mostly talked visual. What about astrophotography? Is it a good target for imagers?
It is rewarding, but again, challenging. That small size is tough for imaging.
You need really good tracking and sharp optics, I guess.
You've got it. Precise tracking is key to avoid smearing such a small target, and you need good resolution.
But the results can show more detail.
Oh, absolutely. Long exposures reveal things totally invisible visually, like there's a very faint, much larger outer halo around the brighter nebula that only shows up in deep photos.
Wow. And I bet narrowband imaging really shines here.
Definitely. Using filters like the OIII filter again, and also H-alpha filters, that's how imagers bring out incredible filamentary structures within the nebula.
Filaments? Like threads of gas.
Yeah, intricate threads and shells that are completely hidden visually.
They always tell a story about how the nebula formed, right? Those filaments can't be random.
Exactly. They trace the history of the star shedding its layers, maybe multiple ejection events, how the gas shells collided, how they interact with the wind from the central star. It's a whole dynamic history written in those faint structures that only photos, especially narrowband ones, can really capture.
So, whether visually or photographically, NGC 6210 really asks for some dedication.
That's the perfect way to put it. It teaches patience. It's easy to just sweep past it, see a dot, and move on. Easy to underestimate.
It's not a flashy, in-your-face object like Orion or Andromeda.
Nope. Not dramatic, but it's intricate. Not famous, but definitely distinctive.
Well, this has been a great look at NGC 6210, the Turtle Nebula. Sounds like a fantastic target for these June nights, assuming the sky cooperates.
A worthy challenge for sure. Definitely proves that small can be beautiful and complex.
Indeed. If you enjoyed this episode of Skyscope and you're hungry for more challenging, beautiful, and off-the-beaten-path objects in the night sky, make sure to subscribe to our channel.
Yeah, subscribing means you won't miss out on future targets and tips.
Thanks for listening, and until next time, steady seeing.
Clear skies.
Skyscope. Challenging targets, real observing.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for weekly podcasts and more.